We talk a lot about comparison and how sometimes that gets in your way as a business owner. And we've done a few episodes around judgment, and they are very popular. And it's something worth addressing again, because clearly this is something that is on the listener, your heart. And I want to talk about it from a perspective of how we judge and compare ourselves to other business owners, what we think other people are doing that are wrong or why we do it better, and how that might be getting A, in your way, and B, what to do about it. So that's what we're going to dive into today. Hey, you leader, entrepreneur, business owner, solopreneur, whatever you call yourself, we know you're a visionary business builder, wealth seeker looking to combine a passion for doing good with leading consciously. It's time to shift from a traditional focus of pure wealth accumulation to one that integrates well-being and fulfillment. You're here for a purpose, and it's time to shine your light. So here we go. You've built success, but now it feels like you're shackled to your business that you've created. Hiring isn't clicking, scaling revenue feels stuck, and instead of freedom, your business is running you. You're not average, and you're done tolerating it. That's why I invite you to take my alignment assessment at consciousedge.com/assessment. You share what's really happening. I personally review your answers and show you what's holding you back, so you can reclaim your time, grow your income, and finally use your success to live fully and unapologetically. Welcome back to the Conscious Edge podcast. I'm your host, Alicia St. Germain. Jonathan Duggar is here with me.
Hello, everybody.
Can I tell you something, Jonathan?
Please do.
When you are not on the podcast, some people don't listen because they love you so much. And I've noticed since you took the summer off, that some of our listeners have kind of dropped off. So I would fully expect when I announce that you are back and we are doing more of these episodes together again, that there are some listeners that are going to be really happy to hear from you.
Well, thank you for that input. That's very humbling.
I know you're super uncomfortable.
I'm sweating.
Right now.
I just broke out in a sweat. But thank you. I'm trying to receive that graciously and gratefully, and I appreciate that very much. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. Do you feel, just side note, do you feel like, because that happens to me too when someone gives me a compliment, and we don't even just have a compliment, we have like actual data to show this. And do you feel like there's like a sense of responsibility when someone puts that on you? Or, I mean, I know it's a compliment, but what's the rejection of the compliment?
We've had a lot of discussions about worthiness.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big piece of it. It's something I still struggle with. I work on it all the time, but I still struggle with it. So it's like, I want to always stay in integrity, and responsibility is a good word because there is that in there too. But it's like the ugly voice that pops up when you say that is like, oh, that's to disregard it, to put it as like, that's probably something else. It's probably a fluke. It's probably, instead of owning it, it's like, that's awesome. Instead, this is a good segue to judgment, because talking about judgment, because you don't have to put judgment on it either way. It's like, just accept it and be grateful. That's what I'm working on. But my immediate response was, I felt the flush, the sweat popped out, the biochemistry kicked in, and that was, and that's from, you can see it as like the early stages of panic. That's what it is, neurologically and biochemically. That's what it is. It's like, oh my gosh, something. Yeah. The spotlight's on you.
If you are new here, I want to say welcome. Jonathan and I are friends for over 20 years. We love doing this together. And if you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you hit the subscribe or follow button from wherever you're listening. And we come out with these new episodes every single week and cover a variety of topics. With that being said, being that our listeners do have some preferences, have shown some preferences. There are episodes that are more popular and very much listened to, like the episode with Jen Boss on financials. Like, I think our most popular episode ever, most listened to episode ever, was when I had Jen Boss on. So we know that you, based on what you're listening to, have preferences. And so what we'd really like to know from you is, what is helpful? What do you want to hear more of? We recently did an episode on neurodivergence, which is kind of the inspiration for this judgment episode. And that episode stands out over the summer as being one of the highest listened to episodes of the summer. There's a clear spike in it. And I had some feelings around even doing that episode. I think it is a like neurodivergence, neurospicy, ADHD, autism, all of these terms that are talked about a lot now. I oftentimes see them used in the context of business owners who are doing business with ADHD. And if you listen to that episode, entrepreneurs statistically have a higher incidence or diagnosis of ADHD than others, just because the entrepreneurship lends to it. But I also have some feelings around, like, are people using it as a marketing tactic? And I mentioned that. And so it made me stop and reflect on myself around the judgment that I was making, because that's not the only place where it's not just on ADHD, it's on any kind of connection point. When you're taught to market, they teach you to connect with people with like who you are as a person. Like, if you like to garden, garden. If, show that you like to garden. If you have kids, like, show you're a mom, even if without showing that you're a mom, if you don't want to show your kids' faces. So like finding all of these connection points where people can see you as a real human. And in my mind, there's a few things that are hot button issues that make me question if it's something I should share or not. Even like when Anne-Marie passed away, it took me 4 years to even make a podcast episode. I never posted about it on social media. I do talk about it because it's part of my story, but I have a fear like, oh, people are thinking that I'm going to capitalize on this death, right? So all of that is judgment based.
Yes.
So I was like, let's do an episode on judgment. I hear it all the time. I use the word cynic. Like, I feel like I'm a little cynical sometimes when I see somebody marketing their whatever program, like whether it's real estate investing seminars, if it's coaching, any kind of performance. I would say it happens a lot in performance-based stuff, where it's like someone's expertise is coming in. I don't think that I mean, we just got Windows quotes. That's an interesting experience going through that. But I don't find I have the same kind of cynic thing there that I do with like experience or expertise-based things. So, cynic. I see myself as a cynic. I'm questioning that. How do I not be such a cynic? Am I a cynic? Like, this is what I'm unpacking currently.
Well, can I interject that?
Yeah.
Okay, so that word cynic, first of all, without judgment, but with a suggestion, because judgment comes from a place of self-protection and self-projection. So I think just from my knowing you and all the years that we've worked together and have been friends, I think a better word is protective. You're not cynical, you're protective. You're protective of self and others in a way. And when you said that about performance things and that being kind of the loaded place, that makes total sense. I hadn't thought about it that way until you just said it. You are so conscientious about integrity and alignment and what you put out into the world and what you say matching up with what you do. I think we both really, those are things we work on within ourselves a lot. And we've talked about that in some other episodes. So when you think about it from a standpoint of if somebody says or does something that feels out of alignment, that's where that pops up because you are so aware of it within yourself. You try to be. And you and I have talked about this offline a number of times about one of our blind spots is we often try and place our own value system on a situation or on a person. And that's often not fair. It's just not fair. So there's a little catchy saying I really like. A lot of them, they don't really resonate with me, but one that comes up, and you just recently sent me, I think, an Instagram thing, and the woman in that said it. And it's one that I actually have used recently. Focus, because it's a very much a mindfulness thing. Focus on facts instead of feelings. So reference the feelings. How does this make me feel? Why is my gut all churned up? Why did I flush and start sweating? But come back to what are the facts? Where's that coming from? Am I feeling threatened? Is this really something that's detrimental or harmful? Start fact checking in a way that removes you from the feeling, the biological drive of protection. Because judgment also tends to generalize. And what I mean by that is, so think about, back in the dinosaur days or whatever, the humans are walking the planet constantly scanning for threat, constantly scanning for something that can hurt them. So they see or have the personal experience or hear about the experience of a large furry animal attacking somebody. Well, now every large furry animal becomes a threat. So there's judgment placed in a generalized way from the standpoint of self-preservation. Well, that's still part of our DNA. That's still part of our biology. So without getting too personal, I know that some of your conscientiousness and your self, some of the worthiness stuff even comes from some very deep places and some places of deep hurt. So those things, especially that happen early in our lives, those things are a constant process of healing. So when something or someone taps one of those buttons, you said hot button earlier, and they really are, it's like taps one of those places, moves one of those scabs. I know that's graphic, but I think it's relevant. We have an often out of character reaction to it. It's not a response. It's a reaction. It's like, ugh, here we go again. And it's everything. I've also seen it happen with you when it's something related to parenting, like where people, a person or a situation is sort of leveraging their kids or leveraging it when it can feel like that. And I get that because you're a very protective mom and you're very protective of the relationship with your children and, how that shows up in a day-to-day way. So I think so maybe in your own mind, shift to that protection place.
So it's super interesting as you're talking and I'm reflecting on cynic versus protective. And I was like, you want to talk about in the moment mindfulness. I was like having a physical body response to the word protective, like cynic. I guess if I think about it, like cynic is like, that won't work. That's, go ahead and try, but I doubt you'll get your result. Protective does feel aligned. And like I had like a warmth in my throat.
You flushed from all the way up your neck.
I flushed. My chest is red. I flushed up from my heart to my throat. Like, right? My like love coming to my voice, right? Protective. Yeah, I am protective. And I always have been that way. When we think about a value system, I was somebody who was bullied in grade school, high school, middle school, all of it. And when I see unjust things or someone being unfair or taking advantage of or hurting someone else, it is really hard for me not to protect them, whoever they are. Like, especially who I might have judged as vulnerable. Like, right. So let me just say that. Like, so can I get myself in trouble with that? Yep. Because I made someone feel vulnerable and they weren't. so I have to really watch that I don't disempower people too, because I want to protect them. That's fascinating. I'm seeing like a new side of myself I didn't really know.
Well, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to kind of do this in the moment when it occurred to me, because it's something I've already been thinking about a lot for self and others. But changing, and this, we can emphasize this at the end of the chat too, just to make sure to bring back the importance. Changing this judgment or this tendency to react instead of respond, or go to feeling instead of examining the facts. The only way that you can make a true shift is through self-compassion. And that's cutting yourself some slack from trying to unravel or undo these knots that have formed over the years. And it's a process. And one of the things I've started doing with myself is when I start getting in that super self-critical place because I've done something that's out of alignment for me, which just happened a few days ago, where I kind of had a little mini meltdown in a social situation because I was so frustrated and I didn't handle it well. And I beat the crap out of myself for an entire 2 days. But I did finally get to a place of mindful self-compassion where it's like that, you know what? That circumstance is a reminder of how important this is, how important it is to me, how important it is to the world, especially right now. And that's what I'm trying to do now. It's like, okay, yep, there's a reminder. There's still work to be done here. Or this is a new way that I can look at this, or fresh perspective. Okay. You know, your arrogance was creeping in and you thought you had this handled. Well, that's BS. You don't. So,
yeah, we always seem to get those. You and I have talked about on previous podcasts, the little reminders that we have when we lose our cool or we have that response, you know, that's like, oh, that's not at all how I want to show up. So, yeah, I think the question and what I wanted to ask a little bit more about was from a marketing perspective. I know that there are things that people feel like, should I share this? Should I not share this? Am I just leveraging something? Like, I gotta say, like, we're recording this on September 11th.
Yeah.
And
I thought about that this morning.
The last 48 hours, you could go look at what happened and you could figure it out. But like, I've seen a lot of stuff that has made me protective of what is the intention of this person saying this right now. Is it to help? Is it self-serving? Is it fake?
Yep.
Like, that's a lot of what's coming up for me. I feel the same way about when people share about death, when people share about disease diagnoses, and it's like, okay, the water feels really muddy in these specifically emotionally charged places. And I don't know that anybody's doing anything wrong. I want to be really clear, because you and I share back and forth neurodivergent content all the time. And we giggle at it because we relate to it. And I recently, I started getting some stuff that was coming across my feed. It can make you think, oh, I have this too, and I have this too. And because the way the ADHD content comes across is like, okay, well, when it becomes a pattern that affects life, then maybe it's ADHD. When it's a thing you do because you're tired or whatever, it doesn't mean you have ADHD. But you could really relate to it.
Yeah. And that's where this buy-in, this spike in viewership of our listenership, if that's a word, to our episode on that, there's this points of relatability, which is a good thing. That can be a good thing. I'll just say that. It's in NLP, we call it point of reference. So there's this positive point of reference, or this personal point of reference for a lot of this messaging. And that's okay. I think even in that episode, we talked about how everybody in some form or fashion or sometime or another has these elements of neurodivergency. It's just part of we can be everybody can be forgetful at some point. Everybody can be distracted at some point. But like you said, when it's a pattern and it presents with some additional challenges, then, it could become diagnosable, if you will. But I think what's happening, and I've been thinking a lot about, because I left social media for the most part for a little while just to take a break from everything. And I've given myself a prescription of how I use it and when I use it, and some trying to be very mindful with very specific intention behind social media, because it can have some negative impact and consequences. And one of the things that I've really started thinking about is the way messaging can get out so fast and so far reaching, and it just becomes saturated. And the way these algorithms work, you look at one thing on ADHD, then you're going to see a thousand other things related to it. So it becomes just this watered down version of something that is really important. The positive side is I think there's more people that are interested and curious in this area than there probably ever has been. The negative side is it does become so watered down that it loses importance. So it's like, oh, that's, they just have ADHD, or they're just neurodivergent. It's just business.
Sorry, I didn't.
No, go ahead.
Let me interrupt you. Or on the flip side, someone who truly does struggle with ADHD becomes like, if we're using it so blasé or passé, or, just like, oh, I'm so ADHD and you're not, it kind of like discredits the realness for someone who really does struggle with it.
That's kind of what I meant about how it loses its importance, because it does. Yeah. There's a tipping point where you go from positive attention to discounting the importance. So it's sort of like, and when I think we're there where it's getting
desensitized.
Yes, desensitized.
I think the word is desensitized because there's other things that are being shown on social media that are shocking to me, that we are desensitized to seeing. Yeah. And therefore maybe not taking action on or supporting in positive ways.
And I think that's a whole podcast right there, because I was thinking about that this morning with the tragedies over the past 24, 48 hours, and on, again, trying to dose out my social media, but I still, just the small doses I was getting, there was a lot of sort of prioritizing tragedy. Like, this one's more important than the other one, or this isn't a real tragedy, and this isn't. It's like those are judgment being placed around those. And it's like, in my mind, I'm like, tragedy is tragedy. This is horrible stuff. Horrible things are happening. And my role in social media, or whatever you want to call it, I've been trying to put some positivity out there, or some things that at least provide a counter perspective or a balancing perspective or something. And I was looking for quotes, and I was like, because I did not have the words myself to write anything this morning. So I was looking for quotes, and the only one I posted this morning, a Maya Angelou quote that basically says, and I'm going to mess it up, but do the best you can based on what you know. And when you know better, do better. And because my thought behind that was, all we can do is the best we can do. But we've stopped focusing on doing the best we can do, and I think some of that comes from this watered down importance. Like, we've stopped placing importance on things that really are, because, like you said, there's this desensitization going on because of this saturation effect of it just being thrown in our faces all the time, or us even seeking it out to a standpoint that we don't even realize we're doing it, because it becomes habitual.
And you and I both process sometimes things through humor, right? So a lot of the ADHD content that you and I share back, we're giggling at ourselves.
Yes, absolutely.
And humor has always been one of the ways that I process hard things. Like, when I get to the point of making probably slightly inappropriate, jokes about inappropriate, that's such my word. When my daughter was 2, for our listeners, you know the story, but when my daughter was 2, she got mad about something, and she looks at me, she goes, "That is inappropriate. This is unacceptable." And I was like, oh my gosh, I just made a mini me. But that's one of the things that happens, is usually when I can start to poke fun. And it's usually I'm poking fun at myself. I'm poking fun at my own, like I'm laughing at my own humanness, essentially, or the humanness of the situation. And so we do use that a lot as a strategy for processing things. And I don't know that that's particularly, I'm not doing it in a negative way. I'm doing it in like an acceptance way.
It's actually a technique, if you will, or a positive point of healing where you're working to get on the other side of the darkness of something that's been part of you. You know, it's like my neurodivergency challenges for the longest time, I could only see as a bad thing and part of that was messaging, external messaging. A big part of it was my own internal dialogue. So turning it into something is like, oh my gosh, I do that. It's turning and laughing at ourselves, and not necessarily even in a self-deprecating way, but it's funny. We're finally to the place where it's funny. It's no longer something that makes me want to go in a corner and cry. It's kind of like the whole premise of comedians. Like, how many comedians tell stories about real life that are and they tell it in a really funny way. And it's just, this is real. Comedy, like really funny comedy to me is the comedy that is like human. Yeah. Like it's just poking fun at being human. So yeah, that's a piece of it. So one thing that I would say, I had asked you in that conversation on neurodivergence, I said, what is the benefit of getting diagnosed versus not getting diagnosed? And since that episode, one of the things that I have come up with is we've noticed that my son is having some reading challenges, dropping beginnings of words and kind of changing letters around. And so we're definitely seeing some signs of some kind of neurodivergence. And I was like, you know what? I kind of understand now maybe that the benefit of diagnosis, for him is like getting him the resources he needs to learn in the way that he needs to learn. So he doesn't get put into a box that he has to learn like everyone else. But for me, I was like, wow, what would that be like as a kid to have that label put on you? And how many people use a diagnosis that they have or something as a reason or an excuse to like not be successful, and by successful, I mean, we define that in very broad terms, whatever it is. But I do see people use it as an excuse for being disrespectful to other people, for not serving their, like, when I talk about a service provider or an expert, like not serving their community or their people that have paid them money in like not being accountable. They use it as a way to not be accountable for their behavior. Yeah. And that's not what we're looking at for our child, is really looking at it. How do we do it to empower him with the right tools? And for myself, I'm looking at it as like, ooh, I actually have always followed a belief that leaders go first. And if I am my son's leader, then I need to show him the process going through, learning about myself, finding out how I work better. Exactly. Give him good tools. And so leaders go first. So that is one aspect I am going to go down because I want to set a really good example. And then when we talk about it in the context of business, it's like, well, like I am uncomfortable talking to you about it, not you, Jonathan. We would do that behind closed doors, but I am uncomfortable talking to you, the listener, about it because I worry that you're going to judge me for using it as a marketing tactic. And I think also it kind of is. Like, I want you to see yourself in me. I want you to relate to me. I want you to want to come work with me because you see yourself and you see a possibility for yourself. So I think it's also getting okay with the fact that people are going to judge you and they are going to have their own protective reasons. They're going to have their own protective things. It is going to be triggering for some people.
So I have a little bit more grace, I think, for the people out there that I see doing this.
I'm glad you said that because I only wrote down 2 things today, which is unusual. I usually have a lot more notes than this.
Where's your list?
2 things. And one of them was, it's important that we all accept that we're going to judge and we're going to be judged, and do that from a place of awareness and compassion, with compassion for others and compassion for self. Because again, it's hardwired into us to some degree to generalize in ways that look like judgment and feel like judgment. So I think when we understand that, but separate the behavior that comes from that initial whatever it is and go back to that fact over feeling place and use it as a way to build a bridge, a way to enhance communication, a way to create insight and clarity. It changes the dynamic completely. And when you can do that in business, oh my gosh, the effects are so far reaching of how you can open up customer base, how you can build integrity, how, your Google reviews will completely change if you get to that place of asking questions to clarify as opposed to shutting someone down because it reminds me of a previous situation, or there's no way they could be actually legitimate in what they're saying or doing, whatever those preconceived notions are that we have. It changes the dynamic completely.
Mm-hmm. Well, and so it's interesting because I see different kinds of marketing tactics used on social media. And it's always interesting. One of the other triggers I have is when I see someone put someone else down in order to build themselves up. Mm. So I recently saw a newer ad that popped up where someone was talking about, they were basically slamming a real estate program. Didn't say which real estate program, but slamming the real estate program for being really expensive. And then this person ended up losing money on their first deal that they did and blaming. I mean, the ad comes across as blaming that that person did not get the one-on-one support that they had expected. Now, whether that was contracted for someone to provide or not, I don't know because I didn't see the contract. But the way that the ad runs, it sounds like that was an expectation. But that doesn't always mean that's what the person purchased.
Right.
They were doing it in the context of, that's why I provide one-on-one services or one-on-one connection to walk you through your deal. And I was like, well, you could say that in such a positive way, without blame, without judgment, because that was so loaded with judgment. And it was so interesting to go through the comments because then the comments were very judgy. The comments were like, and I bet you're about to charge X amount for it too. So judgment is doing judgment. It was like, or it could have been just said like, if you have taken real estate courses and really craved someone to walk through your first deal with you one-on-one, I provide that. Like none of the other stuff needed to be said. So I think it's a call to our business owners to look at your marketing and look at where your marketing is judging other experiences. Because I've done it.
Yep.
I've done it. 100% I've done it. And I really love this idea that you don't have to make someone else wrong for you to be right.
You can also think about it too as blaming is disempowering. You lose your power and it demeans or limits credibility, whether you know it or not. Owning and presenting in a way that's about what you do and what you're trying to do and how you can help is empowering. It's internal. One's external, one's internal. So marketing language, unfortunately, there's a lot of really poor marketing language out there that may have an instant effect in terms of people wanting sort of the craving the negative piece of it. but it does not usually have a lasting effects in terms of creating either a business system or a customer base that's long lasting. So,
and don't you think you're the language expert, right? Right. So number one, I think the reason I went here is because we use these, what did you call them in NLP?
point of reference.
Point of reference. Point of reference.
Personal point of reference. Yeah.
Personal point of reference. So we use these to connect with people. If you have a wound that you are sharing as a point of reference, you will attract, do you think you will attract other people in that same mindset, even if you're not still in that mindset?
I think it's distinctly possible, yes, because that's what they respond to. That's, where the tie-in is. That's where that point of reference is. I think the important part, if it is something that is sort of part that you wouldn't mind that person as a customer or as a client or whatever, but the perspective needs to be getting beyond that. That needs to be said as part of the marketing. If these are things that you have experienced or have struggled with, and you're looking to find skills to overcome that, a safe place to be able to discuss that, whatever it is that you're trying to present, that's the other side of those things. And often that's left out, even, when it's like, let's just get them in and then we'll figure out what to do with them. That's like sort of the marketing perspective. But you can empower in your marketing, you can empower in your conversations, you can empower in your relationship by, that's how you open the door, but here's how you step through and beyond. Like, it's giving that as part of it instead of just the teaser of the trauma. Ooh, trauma teaser. That's
trauma teaser. Yeah. So I think that being really clear in like who you want to attract and how you're sharing those personal points of reference.
Yes.
Is something to think about. And the other piece that I hope that you take away from today is whoever is out there sharing, however they're sharing, it's each individual's person's responsibility to decide who they're going to work with and who they're not. And I don't think you as the business owner need to put down someone else specifically. Like, you don't have to protect people from, like, is it our responsibility to protect people from someone else who's out there doing business?
Yeah. I think that, again, it's about the language. So it's okay to reference possible downsides or negative experiences people may have had with, you just mentioned windows. It's like, if you're a window company, if you want to talk about a positive pathway of working with you and empowering, say, you might reference, some of you may have even be hesitant to pick up the phone or send a message to have your a quote on your windows because of poor experiences in the past. We do our best to it's like, now get out in the door, get through the door and get to the path to the other side of the door. So it's like, but that part that you're talking about is often calling out in a way that's trying to, this is how I'm so much better than this person or this company.
Yes. It's the I'm better than this other person or I'm better than this, like, I don't think you need to do that. I think you shine where you shine. You don't need to do that because I don't know that it lands well for, it doesn't, I'm not your ideal client then. If that's what you do, I'm not your ideal client. The thing I want to end on, and that I really hope, I have found that anybody that I follow or dig into or read up on, whenever I have like a judgment of someone, I have found myself wanting to know, like, what am I missing? What am I missing? Let me dig more into this person. Let me learn more about them. And I've never found someone to be 100% awful or 100% amazing. None of us are. And it reminds me of this movie Crash. I don't know if we've talked about Crash before, but I think it's a movie that everybody should watch. I don't know when it came out. It was a long time ago, probably more than 20 years ago. And so this movie Crash, you follow a series of characters through life, through a period of time in life and the way that they intersect each other. And it's something that I think everybody should watch and everybody should really take away from. What I hope you take away from it is that none of us are 100% good and none of us are 100% bad, and that we're all trying to figure it out and do our best. And so there's somebody who is going to be a godsend to one person, and that same person will be an Achilles heel to someone else. And it really helped me has reminded me, and I hope that you take that away if you haven't seen the movie, that we just get to have a lot of compassion for people, that they are all doing their best, and really be mindful of our own judgments that we're making and understand that someone can not be for you and even not do good things, but there's still good in them and they still do good for others.
Yep, absolutely. And like that Maya Angelou quote, when you know better, do better.
You do better. So with all of that being said, I'm sending you so much love.
Be well, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Conscious Edge podcast. Make sure you subscribe and take a moment to be kind and share this episode with someone you care about. Leave a review to help us bring more compassionate leaders building businesses and creating wealth to the table. And for show notes, head over to consciousedge.com/podcast. This podcast and the linked materials are presented solely for general information, educational, and entertainment purposes and should not be taken as personal or medical advice or any kind of mental health treatment. Please consult a medical or mental health professional if you feel you need such services. Please be advised that all investing and entrepreneurial endeavors involve risk, and the use of the education and information on this podcast and linked materials is at the user's own risk.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.